Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Ruck Up Buttercup. We have a girl chat with you, and like we posted recently on our social media, not everything is going to be happy and cheery. Military life is hard. Like that's why we're here, why we're providing all the resources we are, because things happen. Big changes happen, and life is hard. You can still put a silver lining on most situations and learn from them, but there's going to be things also that just suck, right? They just suck. So today we're talking about grief and loss as part of being part of the military community and just kind of our stories and how we've overcome things that we have.
Yeah, and I think it's important to state, and I think we say this all the time too, it is okay to be in your feels for however long you need to be in it. I did the MSAN leadership program this past year, and one of the things that they talked about was when you go into the basement. So like when you start to shut down, you start to have that grief, you start to have whether it's a crisis mode or because of grief or whatever it may be, what helps you get out of the basement? How quickly you get out of the basement is going to help you kind of move on from that situation. And having those tools in your like tool bag of how to get out, I think will really, really help everybody. But at the same time, like it is okay. It is okay to be in your feels. And the girls are nodding at me right now because I've already told them, like, I'm in my feels today. Like, I am in my feels of, you guys have been listening in the last couple of podcasts. We've talked about, like, how Sabrina and me don't know where we're going. Well, I have news. And my news is not what I wanted. I don't want this. But at the same time, I know that everything's going to work out. Everything's going to be fine. We will make it through the next year and it'll be fine. But I'm happy to be in my feels today and be kind of bitter and annoyed and pissed off with the good old US Army because they're taking my husband away for an entire year and he's getting to go live in Poland, in Europe without me. Fucking asshole. Like I am so mad. But at the same time, I know that everything will work out. I can use this year to better myself in whatever way I choose to do that. Like, we preach about that all the time. Like, find a new goal, find a new hobby, find something that's going to bring that spark back to you. And I'm already kind of planning on what that's going to be once I figure out where I'm going. But, I think that's one of the biggest things that we talk about in terms of grief that we don't kind of like really talk, like, we don't maybe classify it as grief, but when we're saying goodbye to friends, like when we are going on to a new PCS, what I mean, that's grief for me.
It's
It's hard, especially when you have a friendship that is like a found family, like when you have made a family, especially if you come from like a family that you don't have a family with, like this is your family that you've made. You do holidays together. You've were at the birth. You were at every single birthday party. You were at every like dance recital, whatever the case may be. It is, and it's not like you're not going to see those friends again, but like life happens, y'all. Life happens. Your relationship with your very best friend who is PCSing will not be the same. There's going to be distance. Your life is going to get busy where you talked every single day. It might be once a week. It might be once a month. It might be whatever the case may be. And that is a really tough pill to swallow. And I think some people, and I'm guilty of this, is where I will typically just kind of like back away from a friendship. Not back away, but like I'm still there. Like I'm still social media presence and stuff like that. But I in my brain don't feel like I have the time or energy to keep that friendship going, especially if the other person's not doing that on top of that. So like it's one of those things where you you're gonna have to put a lot more extra work into it.
Yeah. And I think the loss of a friend, especially like that when you PCS, doesn't always like the grief doesn't always hit right away. Like I've
It
seen
doesn't.
TikTok videos of like them doing celebrations of their friends PCSing and like being really sad at the point. But sometimes you're really excited about your move. Like I
Mhm.
know when we moved to Germany, I was so excited.
Yeah.
Because like, yeah, I was leaving these friends that we had lived at Bragg for like 6 years. So really good friendships. And I was like, oh, that's okay though. I gotta go to Germany. Like, who
Yeah.
cares? But then it was like in like a few months later when I'm sitting there and I know nobody and I can't go out and do mom's nights out. And I don't know, like, I don't have that connection at all at the new place where I'm like, oh my God, like, I am so sad. Like, I miss my friends so much.
that grief hits, like that grief can hit at any point, and it can come and come and come and come and get again and again and again.
Mhm.
Like I'll be like, oh, scrolling through Facebook, and I'm just like, dang, all my friends are out having dinner right now, and I'm stuck here at home with the kids by myself, and I don't have that, like, same thing, like I don't have that connection because all my friends are continuing their life back where we were, and then now I'm trying to recreate that, but then sometimes like you don't even want to recreate it because you know you're not going to be at the place long enough to do it, so then you kind of keep that like grief tucked in and kind of just mellow on it, which is not healthy. You do definitely have to find that silver lining that we always talk about, but it'll hit you out of nowhere.
Mhm.
My
And
favorite thing to say is, I'll be okay, but I'm going to be dramatic first.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
and it's okay. It's okay. Like I said, it's
It'll be
okay to
fine.
be feel it, y'all. Like it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to cry. It's okay to get mad, yell, whatever helps you get your grief out. Journaling, reading, running, working out, however it may be. That's where, like, you know, getting out of the basement like comes into effect. Like what helps you get out of that so you can get on with your life. And I feel like those change, like, I mean, because we as humans constantly change, we're constantly growing, we're constantly picking up new coping skills. And so, you know, having that kind of like self-reflection of like, okay, well, how am I going to handle this time? Like right now I'm like, I haven't done, like, we've done deployments, we've done, like, this will be my very first geo batching experience. Like my dad did a geo batching my senior year in high school. That was the very first experience I had with that one. But I kind of treated it as like a deployment type of thing. Also, it's very different as a kid in the South. Like
Yeah, for
everything.
sure.
But this is our first geo batching. And yes, I am jealous. I'm resentful at the moment in time because I'm just like, he gets to go to Europe. And we had a conversation with my in-laws last night, kind of explaining it to my mother-in-law. And I was like, I'm not happy. And they're like, well, you had your chance. I was like, it doesn't matter. I was a kid. I'm not counting that as my experience of living overseas because, yes, I did live for 5 years overseas and I loved it.
But it's
But
a different experience as a kid
it's a
versus
different
an adult.
experience. Like yes, I can go visit. Yes. I mean, yeah, but now, like, you know, we looked at flights. It's $1,000 flight for one person round trip. And I'm just like, okay, it's fine. It's fine. Like, we'll make it work. So, and that's why I was like, well, thankfully we interviewed Family in Flight last episode, so there's a great resource that we can reach out to and see if that can be helpful. But it, I mean, like, I'm extremely sad that we don't get to do this as a family. Like, I think that's kind of like where a lot of it's coming from. Like, I'm sad that the kids aren't going to get to experience Europe with dad, and that, you know, we're going to be here stateside doing everything that we've been doing, and dad's gonna get to go do all these new things. And yes, he's gonna be working, so it's not gonna like he's gonna go get to do things all the time, but at the same time,
They do.
I'm
They
sad.
get like 4-day weekends, and yeah, they do.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, like he was already joking, like, you know, what if I go to Greece? And I was like, you go to Greece without me, and we might actually get a divorce. Like, and I'm kidding, y'all who's listening. I love my husband so much, but like he knows it's my dream vacation. And I was like, that's not even funny to joke about, because if you go to Greece and my booty is not right next to you, we will have problems. I'll sell your bike. Like, you won't have things coming home because I'll be selling all that stuff to take my butt to Greece without you. But no, in all fun and games, everything will work out. Like, I'm really, really sad about it right now. And there'll be a lot of sad times. I know the kids are going to be like, you know, the time difference and all that kind of stuff. Like, there's going to be, and they're both at that age where they're growing so much. So I'm also like just really sad that Jeremy's going to miss out on all of these things. And yeah, he's in an MOS that deploys. But to me, it's just so different that, you know, deployment is a deployment. Deployment is like work, things like that. You know, there's not a lot of leisure time per se, where this geo batching unaccompanied tour, like, he could
It's so
take
different.
a
It
4-day
is.
weekend trip to Italy if he wanted to. Like, he can do those things. And so I think it's just really, really different that he'll be, you know, get to go do these things, and it's fine.
It's hard though, and that kind of goes along, like, another thing that we grieve as military spouses is moving ourselves, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not always, and most times often not at all, our choice.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you end up places where you're just like, this is not
This
what I
sucks.
wanted to be. Yeah.
And you know, we preach this all the time, like, you know, you have to make the best experience, you have to go out and find the things that you want to do, but there are going to be times where, like, that just isn't going to work. Like, it's not going to work. Like, you may just have a bad experience after bad experience, and then it's just constant suck, and you're just like, this is not fun. You know, I had such an amazing time at this last location. I mean, I like, it's really funny because Ashley, our volunteer director, loves Fort Bragg. Loves Fort Bragg. She is not liking Fort Bragg right now.
It
And
changes too.
and it's
Yeah.
and like, it's coming off as like grief to her. And I'm telling her story. She's like, oh my God, Ashley. But like, I mean, she's only been away for like
It's only, yeah, 2 or 3 years.
like
Yeah.
3 years, and it's changed. I mean, it changed so much from the time that we started there to coming back, and it's just, and I'm like, oh God, am I going to feel this way too if we go back to Bragg? Like,
Is it
you
not
know,
going to be
like,
the
I can
same? Yeah.
feel like, you know, I mean, Bragg is always going to have a special place in my heart. Like, that is where I was born. That is where I was mostly raised. That is where mostly our kids have been raised. But at the same time, Brock is fucking crazy right now. And so, but that's like, you know, I'm already like, you know, okay, well, we maybe not live super close to Bragg this time around. Like, you know, I'm already looking to move out further towards like Grace Creek or Cary or wherever it may be. And Jeremy's just gonna have to commute. But at the same time, like, I know Ashley has been like really bummed. And she keeps asking Jill, like, are you coming? Because she's like, if someone comes back here with me, it might make it better.
Yeah.
But like, even if you go back to a place that you absolutely love, you can still feel that grief.
Well, there is this, the people aren't there. Your people are going to change.
Yeah,
We move, but then your kids are changing. So the community that they're part of is not going to be the same when they come
no,
back.
exactly.
And yeah, that would be really hard when you built this like family there and then it's not there and you're like expecting to come back into the same feelings and the same emotions, and you come back and you're like, oh, I still have to start over. Like, it doesn't really
Yeah,
matter. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that feeling of starting over, like, yes, we are molded to be able to do that. We've been drilled that, you know, we can handle anything that's thrown away. But it's exhausting. Like, it's exhausting to make new friends. It's exhausting to find your new spots. Like, it can be exciting, but at the same time, like, it is mentally draining to find all of your new favorites, all of your, you know, favorite grocery store. You're going to go grocery shop because it has everything you need. Your favorite places to go for play dates or kid activities or date nights. And then making friends is so nerve-wracking.
It's so hard.
Even as an extroverted person,
I
like,
was gonna say, as
it
an
is.
introvert, it kills me. Like, I know that I have to put myself out there, but I'm also a really laid back person. So like when I go to events, I just kind of like sit, and then people come to me, then I become friends with them because people realize that like I'm a very social person. Like, I like to talk and I am very friendly to most people, but like I am not going to walk over to a group of people and start talking to you. That's never going to happen.
Yeah. And I used to be that way. Like, I used to be that person who would just walk over and say, hey, I'm Ashley. Nice to meet you. And I still do that in certain circumstances. But I'm also starting to get to the point where I'm just like, maybe if someone comes to me, it'll take that pressure off.
Well, as you get, I feel like that's also kind of the thing is like,
Yeah.
how much effort and energy do I want to put into trying to find friends? Because like I went to a mom's night and I had kind of made an acquaintance. Me and my friend Allison now we're friends, but like had kind of met at one event. We didn't really know each other. She's like, well, this mom's night coming up. Let's go together. And whatever. And it's funny because like every place you move, the like atmosphere of each friend group is also super different. So here at Fort Huachuca, it's a lot of locals. Like everybody's lived here. And a lot of people Fort Huachuca, they call it Fort We Got You because people also have stayed here. Like, this could be their entire military career has been in one place. And so we came in and I've found two different groups of people that we were like interacting with. And I can tell like, hey, I can't, these ones that have been here forever, And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. But they're very cliquey. They're friends because they've lived here forever. They have friends.
And
They're
it's
not
so
interested in
weird
new
going
friends.
into like, it's so weird like going into a friend group like that. Like I deal with that here because a lot of the people here grew up here.
Mm-hmm.
And I've made some friends like while subbing, like I've like friended a lot of the teachers and stuff like that. But a lot of them, you know, have been here their entire lives. Like thankfully, like two of the friends that I made also were prior, like they both were in the service as well. So like they went out, came back home, but like they grew up here. So like they'll be talking about like, did you hear so and so, da da da, and I'm like just reading my lunch because I have nothing to add to the conversation because I don't know who this person is or anything like that. It's crazy. It's crazy to look at friendships, and I feel like a lot of our counterparts in like the civilian world don't have to deal with like that, like, oh, I have my friend group, I'm set. Like I have a group of 3 or 4 or 5 friends that I can be like, hey girl, you want to go have coffee? Cool, one of them's going to go with me. Whereas military spouses, we are constantly moving. You know, if we're not working outside of the home, you don't have that social like automatic connection with someone else that you could be like, oh, this is my work friend. So, you know, if you're not making friends, like if you're not going to like an FRD event or something like that, making a friendship within your husband's or your spouse's unit, or if you're not going to say like a deployed love event or another organization event where they're doing some type of social event like a coffee or something, and maybe your neighbors, but I feel like all my neighbors have always been really weird, minus like one neighbor. So I've not made friends with any of my neighbors because all of my neighbors, well, here my neighbors are not bad, but they're much older than me.
Mine are incredibly old. Like we just picked a house and every single person around us is like 80. Every single
Oh,
person.
nothing wrong with that. Like I would love to have like a surrogate grandma in my life, you know, but at the same time, like I can't ask, I mean, I don't know. I know some crazy grandmas,
They're all
but
super nice. Like the one across the like catty corner from us is so funny. The other day we were outside because it was nice, so we're trying to keep the kids outside. And she was having an Easter party, and she had a whole rack of hats. So as her friends would come in, they had to put on a hat. And then
that's my kind of
then they came out like an hour later. We were watching them. And so Darren runs over there. He's like, hey, you want a group picture with your hats on? And so he takes their picture. And then they go on a parade around our neighborhood. Just these old people walking with hats.
I
It was the
love it.
funniest thing
I would have 100% going like, hey, can I join? Because I love that so much. And, you know, and I think that's one of the really cool things about military spouses is we can friend people in every age group. Like, I think so. I mean, my good friend here is 10 years younger than me. And I don't know if that's just because, like, she's, like, one of my only friends. But at the same time, you know, I've had friends a lot older. I've had a friend, I mean, I've been friends with, like, they could be my child if it really came down to like you could have been my kid. But and I think that's one thing that like that either some military spouses are like, oh no, I can't be friends with someone who's that young or that old, or you have military spouses like us who are just like, age isn't, I mean, yes, age comes with a bit of maturity and things like that. We're in different stages of life, and there are times where I'm just like, I wouldn't want to go like out and party with like a night out with a bunch of 20-year-olds because I'm almost 40, and no, I don't have the energy to do that. But at the same time, I'm not gonna like knock that because like I was that, like I was 20 at one time, and I would go out and go to the bar with a group of friends and stay out until 1 a.m., 2 a.m. type of thing. Like that, I've done that. But like at the same time, I'm like, I'm content, you know, 10 o'clock, good, I'm gonna go home now. Like my trip like 2 weeks ago where we were up until like midnight, I was like, I'm so tired. Like, how am I still going? Because it was like 12 o'clock every single night, and then we were getting up at like 5 a.m. to get ready to go get in line for these events. And I'm like, how am I functioning, y'all? Like, I have no clue.
I would not have been functioning. I would have quit.
I was like, and then what was crazy is like I didn't even drink a lot of caffeine while I was there because I was just like go 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 go. And I was like, how am I like, well, if I can function like this without caffeine, like why am I drinking so much caffeine when I'm at home? And I think it's just because I literally was just jam packed full of like activities, and like I just didn't have a moment to be like, I'm exhausted until like the last day, and then I was like, I'm exhausted, and I still have to drive home 4 hours. So
Yeah.
That's how it is when we either like travel for a sports event, if we've saved up to go, or like we go to a Comic-Con that's not local. Like we're planning to go to Houston in August, and I'm already tired from thinking about it
yeah,
because
Thinking about
I'm
it.
like, I already
it
know.
doesn't tell you how old we are, y'all.
Well, that's so my
I'm like, I'm
uncle
gonna need a
in
week
Houston.
to recover. Like,
I've been home for 2 weeks and I still feel like I'm in recovery mode. Now, granted, I did like F my knee up on that trip, and thank goodness it's actually feeling so much better. But I'm just like the last 2 days, I'm like, okay, like we have to get back in a routine. Like we can't be like on level 20. Like we have to get back up and
Yeah.
be productive and like get things done. But I was like, but that's like the first trip, or like any trip, like what you're saying, like just thinking about PCSing.
It's so exhausting. I know that's what I
It's,
was gonna say. Is that
I'm
my
just like,
uncle,
oh god, I have so much to do.
he goes, your cousin is graduating. He's like, one of your last cousins is graduating high school. Can you come to Houston for his graduation? And I get it because there's not a lot of us, a lot of our family. And I was like, dude, that is even from here is like a 3-day drive. I was like, and you want me to do that with just me and my kids, and
Yeah.
then turn around and 3-day drive back? I was like, there's no way. There's no way. Like, I am so sorry, but I am so tired already just thinking about the concept of driving that far that it's no.
Well, and that's a great point you just made, because like that also, like I will feel so sad about times where I'm like, I can't do that. Like I can't afford it. I don't have the time to take off or anything like that, of missing out
That's a
on
huge
those
point of grief. Yeah.
family events. Like I was, my sister, like, I went to her graduation. I made her to her graduation. I didn't make it to my Brooks graduation because I just PCS to Alaska. But then I was like, well, come see me. And they came up there for their like senior trip for that summer before they went to college. But my Reagan just graduated from nursing school. And now granted, I didn't learn about her graduation date until probably like a week and a half before it happened. And it happened to be a Thursday. And and Jeremy was gone in the field. And I was just like, I can't. Like, there's just no way that, we already have a trip planned this weekend to Charlotte. It was my niece's second birthday. I had already said we were going to that. I just don't think I can manage driving all the way to Knoxville and then driving to Charlotte. And like, that wouldn't have been a big deal if the road wasn't washed away. Like, I would have been like, oh yeah, that's easy. But then I would have had to take like the really long way. And I was just like, I just can't do that in 2-day time span by myself. And she's like, thankfully, like my younger sister is really, really like, like it's okay. But like, missing out on family holidays. Like my mom's side of the family, my grandmother used to do all of the holidays. And, my uncles still do Thanksgiving. So like Thanksgiving is usually typically when that whole entire family gets together. But like we make it once every 3 years, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like that we've
And
missed so many things. And I mean, a lot of it is granted, we have had a lot of overseas tours. Like we've been overseas at least 50% of the time that we've been part of the military. And so that it sucks because we literally just can't afford to come back. And neither can my family. Like they can't afford to fly our whole family back either for situations. So I've missed
it's
the funeral of one of my grandparents. I've missed my sister's wedding. I've missed my brother graduating high school. Like there's just these things where it's like it fucking sucks.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And like even just like a couple weeks ago, my grandma fell and she was in the hospital. My mom needed help. And we only have one car. Like, yeah, we have this flexibility of homeschooling, but like I can't take the car and then just Dustin walks to work 6 miles every day. Like that's not possible. And
Well,
we get
and like
stuck in that situation so often, and I feel so bad.
and you feel bad, and then like and then on top of that, like you're feeling bad because you're missing all these events, but you can also feel like, I think we've talked about this in the past too, where it's okay to feel sad when people don't come see you, because I know that I'm like, why, like you just went on a family vacation, like why not include us on that family vacation, or come see us? Like, I mean, we've been stationed in Alaska, we've been stationed in Texas, North Carolina as a family, Virginia as a family, but like, just growing up overseas and stuff like that, like you know, if you're already planning to do a vacation, why not plan to come? I mean, because I mean, and that might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I love having guests. I love when people come to visit and be like, you know, so that's why I'm always like, my door is always open, y'all. Like any of our friends that are listening, like if you are driving through and you need a place to stay, I got your back, because one, I get to see your face.
Mhm.
Like, and I think that's so important that I get to spend, even if it's like 2 hours where I get to sit on the couch and catch up with you with a glass of wine. That is everything. Like, that's everything. Like, that is something that's super fun. And, you know, one, I get to help you out. Two, we get to see each other. Three, you know, that's the perk of being a military spouse. Like, you get to go to these cool, amazing places, near places. Like, I mean, there's so many cool things right around here that I can be like, oh, we can go do this. We can go where they filmed Dirty Dancing, and then I can take you to this really cool, like, national park in West Virginia that's like an hour away. Like, there's so many cool different things that are here. I mean, I'm only 4 hours from DC. Like there's so many different things. And so I definitely feel that, you know that I felt this way. And I think we've talked about this in the past, where like I get sad when no one chooses to come see us. Like, it's always an expectation of us going to see them. And I'm like, as much as I love going home,
We've done all
we
the
don't do
things there.
anything. Like,
Yeah.
other than seeing you, we don't get to do anything because we've just spent all of our money driving or flying there. And that's why typically we choose to go to my in-laws, because at least then we go do things as a family. Like, we'll go out, we'll go to the parks, we'll go do all these different things as a family, and not just sit at a house and do nothing.
Yeah, and that's what all my family is in Colorado, but I grew up there. Like, we lived there. So visiting you isn't really that exciting because I've done it. I've done everything, it feels like, in my life there. It's like I love seeing you, and it sucks that that's our home base because they expect us to come visit.
Yeah.
And then it's like my mom, she was talking to me on Easter, and it was like, she's like, yeah, well, it's really hard. I don't know if I'll be able to make it down there, and then da da da. But then in the same conversation, it's like, well, and I'm gonna go see Shane, and we're going to Iceland and Scotland and Ireland.
And
And
it's like,
and I extended it to 2 weeks. I was like, so you could get 2 fucking weeks to go see Shane, but you couldn't bother. We are only 12 hours away to come see me for even the weekend of Easter when you had my aunt there to help. Like,
yes. And it's so okay to be angry and upset about that, because you should be, number one. Exactly, like, you'll go and travel. Like, my sister, I feel bad for my sister, because we actually had this conversation not that long ago, because my mom came up and visited me when I was in Alaska, and this was right before my sister moved up there, and my mom didn't go back to visit her afterwards. Like, she didn't go visit Brittany while she was stationed in Alaska. So I don't know if that was one of the reasons, is like her and her relationship wasn't that great during that time frame. But two, I was at the same time, like, my mom already went to Alaska. So she was like, I don't need to go again.
right.
But, like, we actually had that conversation because, like, that's the only time that someone came to visit me, other than like my in-laws. My in-laws are great. My in-laws will come to us. Like, we switch off. They'll come to us one year, we go to them one year. And I love that. And I'm so fortunate to have great in-laws that will do those type of things. And, if we move overseas, I know that they'd come overseas. They've come to Texas, they've come to Alaska, they've come to Virginia. Like, they've come to everywhere we station at, but they're the only ones.
Yeah, that's my older sister. So my little sister, she comes and visits me all the time, right? Like, we see each other at least 3 times a year, at least, almost everywhere we've lived. That's just kind of our thing. She's literally my best friend. We were less than a year apart. Like, we are best friends. But then my older sister, she's like, well, you don't even come stay at my house anymore when you come to Colorado. I'm like, because you have never visited me since I was 19 years old. You came to Hawaii because you wanted a vacation, and it wasn't a good time for anybody involved because we had to do what you wanted to do. And since then, you have never visited me. I'm like, so why every time we come back to Colorado should I stay at your house and spend my whole week with you if you don't give a shit? Like, you don't come to me. You never come see us. And like, now she's like, oh yeah, well, our Colorado road trip for the summer got ruined, so I think we're going to go to Montana again. They went last year. I was like, why not come to Arizona? Like, why? That's the same distance. Like, I don't understand that.
And that's like where it's hard for me, to wrap my brain around too, because I'm like, my family, usually my dad and my stepmom and my stepsisters or my half sisters usually will go on like a family trip once a year. I've yet to be invited. And I'm an adult. I can pay my own way.
That sucks.
But I'm just kind of like, why? I mean, like, and then I'm like, and we have and kids. Like, my thing is more along the lines of like, you're choosing not to get to know either your grandkids, your cousins, whatever the case may be. And I can't say anything like this. I used to be really good about going home and visiting, but I have like I'm doing what I want to do. Like, I'm doing what I want to do. Like, if I want to go home and visit, I'm going home to visit. But at the same time, I'm not using every single break that we have to visit family. Like, I made that choice probably 3 years ago. I think it was probably COVID. Wait, so about right after COVID.
For a while. Oh, wait, 5 years? Yeah.
I am using this vacation time to do things that we want to do. And anyone's more than welcome to join us. Like, I'm like, hey, we're going to Disney. You want to come? Cool. Nope. Cool. Hey, we're going to the beach. You want to come? Cool. Nope. Cool. Like, whatever the case may be. And so I think it's one of those things where like, you just have to do what's best for your family and you, because and you can feel sad about it, like, but at the same time, like, if you put so much energy into feeling sad about like, why won't they come visit me, that's all you're gonna think about. And I mean, it took me 34 years to understand that and to get over that grief, especially with like my dad. You know, I always was just like, he doesn't want to spend time with me. He doesn't want to get to know me. He doesn't want to get to know my kids. And I've had a lot of conversations with my sister about that. And, and I've never lived with my bio dad. I've only visited during holidays and summers, things like that. But I've never lived with my bio dad before. And me and my twin sister did live with my bio dad for most of her high school. And we had a conversation recently about it because I was just like, I went through a really depressive time period about why doesn't he want to be a part of my life? Like, he doesn't reach out only on holidays and things like that. And it kind of came down to a couple of different things. But, he's had conversations with her about he, wants to be more involved, but he also wants to respect that we're adults. And I'm like, Like, I will be all up in my kids' business, being like, hey, are you coming home for Christmas? Hey, we're going out. Like, we want to do a family vacation. Like, we're going to, let's plan this. Like, what dates are good for you? And I think that it kind of just comes down to generational things too. Like, I think some of our counterparts that are much younger probably aren't going to feel the same way that we feel about certain things. Our counterparts who are a little bit older are going to feel different too. So I feel like it's definitely something that you have to take time to reflect on and determine if that is something you're going to grieve and how you're going to get out of the basement for that. Or if that is something you're like, I don't even fucking care. Like, that I don't care. Like, if they want to be a part of my life, then they'll be a part of my life. I'm not going to keep, trying to keep that connection going. And that is something that takes a lot of people a long time to learn. And then there's just some people who are just like, that's just how I've always been. And I'm like, kudos to you. But, you have to kind of pick and choose on what you're going to make that's going to take up your time for the duration of whatever it is that you're thinking about.
I was having a conversation with one of my friends the other day, and they were like, how are you not more bothered by, because my mom has pretty severe dementia at this point now. Like, most of the days she doesn't remember that I was even adopted. She sometimes remembers that my brother was adopted, but me, my kid, in her memory, we don't exist anymore. And people were like, well, how does that not just tear you up? And I'm like, maybe it's because I'm adopted, or we just weren't that close anyway. But I'm like, it is what it is.
Like, when it comes to things like that too, my grandfather had dementia, and you go through that stage of grief, like, oh man, this really sucks. Like, they don't remember who I am, or they thought I was my mom. The different cases. And I think my biggest grief with that is just not being able to be there. But then at the same time, like, having that separation for me was kind of what helped me get through that grief faster, because I didn't physically see it. But I know that my sister is traumatized by it. Like, she was there every single day. She was helping with medical stuff because she was an RN or a CNA. And so, you know, my experience with it is very different from my sister's. And, you know, and I think that's important to say, like, everybody's experience and how they handle grief and what causes grief is going to be so different. You know,
Yeah.
something that you're like, that's stupid. Why are you sad about that? Like, first off, stay in your lane, because we all have our right to feel what we want to feel and how it affects us, because it's going to affect us differently. Something that affects me and how I'm going to feel sad about it, Sabrina might be like, that's so stupid, Ashley. Like, why are you sad about that? And that's okay, because we're all individual people and we're all different, and we all have different stages of life we're going through. And we all have different, you know, morals and beliefs and things like that. So just because something makes one person sad and doesn't make another person sad, first off, just stay in your lanes. If you want to be supportive, but don't like tell someone that like they're being dumb about being sad about something just because. Like, for instance, my mom doesn't listen to podcasts, so I'm going to say it. My mom is having some plastic surgery done today, actually. And I'm pissed. Like, I'm like, you have time to go get plastic surgery done, but you don't have time to come to your niece or your granddaughter's dance recital? Or you don't have time to pick up the phone once a week and say, hey, how are you doing, honey? Like, so I was just like, I text my sister. I was like, hey, like, am I weird being like kind of pissed off about this? Because I'm kind of pissed about this. Like, I'm upset that she's like, she can go get plastic surgery done. Just time for that, when she complains she doesn't have time. And I think, and that's one of those things, I'm like, that's probably really dumb to some people, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm pretty mad about it. Cause like, you know, I'm, like I said, I'm fortunate that my in-laws are so hands-on with the kids, but like my mom, my side of the family is not. And I grieve for my kids, I think. Like, I grieve that they're not having that same connection that they get with my husband's parents. And, you know, and not that my parents aren't great grandparents. They are. I just wish that they would be like, you know, my in-laws talk to the kids once a week. They FaceTime every weekend with the kids. Every weekend. If not once, twice in a week. You know, they're commenting on photos on Facebook. They're commenting on things like that. You know, if they know that they had picture day, they're like, hey, how was picture day? Or, hey, how was your field trip? Or, hey, I saw that you got this. And my family's just doesn't do that, which is so weird, because I felt like my family was much more personable. And I get it that we're all in different stages of life, and like, you know, there's the business and things like that, but my kids are already picking up on that. Like, my kids are already picking up that, like, my stepdad lives in Thailand, and they've only met him like 4 times. You know, they pick up like, well, you know, Mia, you know, is always working when we're there. We don't get to really do anything. And my mom does take them out to do something, but it's usually what she wants to do, not like what they would want to go do. So, you know, and that's grief that, you know, for me as a mom and a military spouse, for my kids, like, my kids get, not only am I missing out on things, my kids are missing out on a lot of things that other kids don't have to deal with. You know, and thankfully my kids just take it in stride. Like, they are the epitome of a great military kid. Like, they're like, yeah, we're moving, let's go. Like, they're both like, we get to move, where are we going? And then like I said, like we were talking earlier, like I was looking at houses last night, and Claire's like, can we get a pool? She's like, that one's so pretty, Mom, can we get that? I was like, that's not our price point. She goes, it's okay, like, we'll have fun. And I'm like, if that's all that matters, it's okay, we'll have fun. We can afford, you know, something that's probably like way out of our price range. It was a gorgeous house, don't get me wrong, but I was like, we can't, that's too out of our price point. And but, you know, the kids, you know, thank goodness they're still at an age where that grief isn't going to start showcasing as much. Like, I remember starting to grieve moving and losing friends in middle school. And it wasn't middle school, it was probably high school, because I was excited as hell to move during middle school, because I had the worst time in 6th grade at the school I was at. And I was like, let's go. Like, I'm ready for a new environment, new people. But I did grieve moving during high school, because, like, you know, I wanted to stay in Germany. I loved going to school in Germany and all the friends I had there. Did I grieve that I didn't get to see family as often? Yeah. You know, it wasn't, you know, all the fun. Like, I didn't get to see my sisters as often and things like that. But at the same time, like, I was more focused on like what made me feel better at that time point. And so like, I was like, my friends You know, there's a big age gap between my younger sisters and me. So like I was like, you know, I'm not even like, it's not like I'd be more like babysitting like at that age group. And so like I did love going home to visit, but like I was fine with like that 2 weeks and then I was good to go. Do I grieve that we don't have a better relationship? Absolutely. I get so jealous that my younger sisters have this fantastic relationship together. Like they're best friends, they do everything together, even though they have a big age group between them. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm just there's like it's almost like I kind of talk to myself about like I'm just like a distant cousin. Like I'm like by blood I'm their half sister, and I'm like I am their sister, but like that's not how I feel. I feel like I'm kind of just like they have to put on a show when I'm there to make sure that I, you know, feel loved. And it's not that that's probably the case. Like, I don't think that's the case.
Probably.
But I feel like it's definitely one of those things where I'm just like, you know, I do wish I had a better relationship with my sisters. And that's part of my fault. Like, and again, like in a stage of life where I'm a mom and my youngest sister just graduated college. So, and I'm almost 40. So like there is that age group of, you know, how to navigate that. And I just haven't learned how to navigate that because I've never really been forced to do that because I've always just lived states and thousands of miles away ever since she was a baby. So that grief is always there. And I feel like a lot of spouses have that, like, you know, missing out on siblings, high schools and graduations and things like that. And then, you know, we're talking about grief, you know, the grief of losing somebody, like in the military world, like, you know, I'm sure all of us here have dealt with our service member losing somebody during a deployment, you know, losing someone that we've known during a deployment. And it's really it's such an odd thing to have to cope through.
It is. I feel like that was one of my first like military traumas was someone that we knew directly from our military unit or whatever that we were friends with having passed while he was in Iraq, and they came back, like they were still deployed but the body came back and everything, and we did this ceremony on base, and I remember going with my friends to it, and like the 21 gun salute, like all of that is just, it's so like so surreal, especially when my husband was still deployed. Like this is
Yeah.
so reality of like, hey, this really can happen. Like you don't think it can. I mean, you know, I mean, you do, you know that that's a possibility, obviously, especially back in the early 2000s that like
Yeah.
when you haven't heard from your husband in 2 weeks, like what the fuck is happening kind of
Mm-hmm.
situation. But it was so heartbreaking to just like, oh wow, like his boots
Well,
are there and like that person is just gone. Yeah.
and like and I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but like the grief of like or the grief of like knowing that like someone that you knew, you appreciated, you loved, whatever the case may be, is gone, but then also just being extremely thankful that it wasn't your service member and grieving for the other family. It's such a like I don't even know how to put it into words. Like it's one of those things where you you can't really put it into words because it's one, it's a different situation, and if you've been through it multiple times, like you don't, like it's a different feeling every single time. You know, you're grieving for your spouse's loss, but you're grieving for the loss of the community. You're also grieving for the loss of feeling, I mean, that you're so thankful that it wasn't your soldier. So there's just grief after grief after grief, like there's all these like feelings coming in. And you know, once again, it's okay to have those feelings, but you know, how do you handle those situations? And you're right, it was really different in like the mid to like late 2000s. Like, you know, we, other than like the Afghanistan evacuations that happened a couple years ago, that, you know, there hasn't been this high war like experience that a lot of our spouses have dealt with yet. And so I pray that they don't have to go through this because it is such a surreal experience. Like even as a military kid, like knowing people that worked with my dad who are no longer with us, and knowing kids. I mean, you know, my sister-in-law's one of her very dear friends, one of her best friends, her dad died in, I believe it was Iraq as well. And just knowing that, like, you know, feeling like I had to like watch what I was saying around her because I didn't want her to feel sad that her dad wasn't here. And so like when you're in that community, it's kind of that grief of, when you're talking to a Gold Star spouse or a Gold Star family. And it can get weird, and like, and I know those families don't want it to get weird, and there are some spouses who are very, very open about their grief and their experience being a Gold Star spouse. And if you are a person who is going through that, I highly suggest that you reach out to those individuals. If
Laura. That's why we have Laura on the show, is because it's an
Laura,
experience that not
exactly.
everybody
Laura,
has.
there are several people that I know who are always willing to talk to people who are going through that grief, whether it is whatever the case, however the case, that soldier is no longer with us. There are so many things, and Laura, you can probably add into like what that is like with it. Yeah. 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 Just didn't know how to talk to you. Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think that is important to say, is that it's something that happened to you, and there will be a time where you probably are going to be really emotional things and things like that, but that is when traumas happen, that is when you can learn, and it's the unfortunate part of a trauma, is who your true friends are, who is going to be there to support you, and who is going to be like, yeah, no, I don't want to deal with that. And that's when, I mean, one, that's another heartbreak, that's another grief that that person has to deal with, because not only are they grieving the loss of somebody, they're also grieving the loss of a friendship because that person ghosted or just kind of slowly stepped out of the picture. And first off, that's just, I mean, I get it. Everyone handles trauma differently. And once again, like, everyone handles it differently. And some people do the freeze thing where they kind of have to, they step out of the picture. They don't know how to handle that. But there are so many resources out there that if you're just like, I don't know how to support my friend in a way, that you can learn how to support your friend in a time like that. And it's okay to be honest too. Like, if I had a friend that came up to me and just was like, hey, I don't know how to help you in this grief. I don't think I'm going to help you recover in a timely manner. I'm here for you with whatever you need me to be, but I don't think, I think I'm just going to make it worse. Like, and that's a hard conversation to have, and that might not be a conversation that you feel you can have, but it's also, I feel like if someone came up to me and said, I don't know how you feel in this way, and I feel like I'm just going to say things that's going to make you upset, and so I think I'm going to take myself out of the picture, and I can help you in this way, this way, and this way, but I don't think I can be a listening ear because I don't think you're going to get what you need from me. And I think that's okay. And Laura can be like, that's stupid, Ashley, that's not okay. I need someone who's going to sit here. It was a sense of normalcy. Yeah. And and that's a sense of normalcy, yeah. And I think, like, when you're saying, like, this is how I handled it, everybody handles grief and trauma differently. Like, you, and, like, for you, like, for anyone who's listening, just be like, "I could not do that." Well, first off, you won't
You
know what
have
you can
to.
do
Like, you can't just not.
until it happens to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, until something happens to you, you have no idea. I mean, I've known a handful of people who have dealt with loss very suddenly, whether they're a parent or not a parent, who have just had to go on with their day, And then everyone's just like, oh my God, like, how is she just like going on with her life? Or even like started dating like 7, 8, 9 months after the loss. And everyone's just like, I could never. And I'm like, no, we are not having that. I could never have conversation, because you do not know what you are going to do until you are in that person's shoes. And yeah. Yeah, that's such a good point that you make, Laura, because even like simple diagnosis like ADHD and stuff like that, like having to have that conversation of like why he's doing this, and like why you have to have extra patience or anything like that. But like, having friends leave, like that's grief. Like, ugh, like I can't believe my friend is gonna leave me just because my kid
Acts a certain way.
acts a certain way or needs certain things or anything like that. And like, that's where just like in essence of the whole conversation that we're having, like grief is around every corner, and it can come in so many different packages. Like it can come from friend loss, it can come from a physical loss, it can come from moving, it can come from, I mean, an injury, like the loss of being able not to continue to do something that you were doing. Like it can come in so many packages, and it can come at so many different times that, like I said at the beginning, like having those coping skills and
I was gonna
how
say, you mentioned the basement and like what you've learned through your training. What are some of those skills that you learned from that would help people
well,
to
like
kind of get out of
it,
that funk?
it's really going to be dependent on the person. Like, what, you know, is it a counting mechanism? Is it for me, like when I start to get overstimulated and I start to shut down, I know that I have to remove myself from the situation. So like if I'm starting to get overstimulated, for instance, I was at the bookstore the other day during indie bookstore day, and this is so weird. Like this is just an example, but there were so many people in there because like they're in there to support the day, and I was getting so overwhelmed. And they had all these specials, and I get up to the counter and she's like, hear me out. And I was like, listen, I hear you, I know what you're gonna tell me, I just got to get out of here. And I was like, because if not, I'm going to shut down, and then I'm going to be in a bad mood all day because I'm so overstimulated. And once I hit that peak for the day, like I'm just there, like I don't have like a way to kind of come down. Like my nerves are just on like edge. And I've learned over the last few years specifically that like if I'm starting to get upset like with the kids or something like that, I'm like, instead of just yelling at them to tell them to go away, I have to remove myself from that environment. So I take myself to a new environment. So say I was in the kitchen upstairs, I will come down here, or I'll go up to my room and I would get a new environment, and I would do like take a couple deep breaths. Or some people need to just scream, like they need to physically have a release. They go work out, they do a run, they go for a walk, they read a book, they journal, whatever the case, whatever it is that works for you to kind of take a step back. Now, in major crisis mode, like, for me, I'm a list maker. I write the pros and the cons. Like, I'm writing down, or a list person also. Like, okay, these are the things I have to do before we can do that. Like, when my grandparents died, they all died back to back. I had 3 grandparents that died back to back, and my first step was, okay, well, who do I need to contact? Who do I need to, I went through this list, and that might not be the case for everyone else. Like everyone else may just cry. I was just like, I cried for 2 minutes, and then I was like, okay, who do I need to contact to help my mom? Who do I need to contact? How do I let Jeremy know? How do I do all these other things? And then once I completed my list, I did another cry, and then I was like, okay, now we have to go back. Now I have to go to work. Now I have to go do this. And so I think that's one of those things where it kind of depends on the person and knowing what your coping skill is and learning what those are. And that can be different. Like some people like physically need to do something physical, like going to the gym, things like that. That typically works well for me when my kids aren't around. But when my kids are there, it just pulls up my nerves a little bit more, because then like they're interrupting me or something like that. Like it's not releasing that pent up energy within me. Where other people may need to just journal. Like they need to just find a spot and be able to put their thoughts to paper. And as much as I want that to be for me, too OCD to do about that. So the entire time I'll be like, I hate that letter. Like, that doesn't look right. So I think it just really depends on the individual. And when it comes to like handling grief, I mean, I'm always going to say this: feel your feels. Like, don't let someone say that you can't be angry, you can't be sad, you can't be happy, or like, you have to be happy for that person. Like, like my in-laws comment about like, you already had your time. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. I already had my time in Europe. I'm sad that he's going by himself, and I'm okay to feel sad about that. And like I told him, I was like, I'm sad. I'm upset about this, but I know it's going to be okay. Like, I know later on, like, I'm feeling my feels today. And then starting whenever I decide my feels are out of the way and I felt them, I'm going to start planning, and I'm going to make my list, and I'm going to make my pros and cons. And I'm going to be like, well, what's best for me and the kids? Okay, well, he's going there. Like, okay, well, now we got to start saving money. So start like saving the money for our trips and stuff like that. So I'm a list maker. I'm a pros and cons. When I have to go to the basement, feel my feels, depending on how long I want to stay in the basement, because you can control that too. You can control how long you stay in that basement. You can control on, okay, I want to be in the fields for a couple of days. Like, I know I want to wallow for a couple of days over this move, this geo batching that we're about to do. But I know that, like, sometimes I can't stay in that basement long. For instance, like when Jeremy rapidly deployed, I couldn't stay in the basement because I had responsibilities that I had to do. So I took 3 minutes to get really mad, really angry. And then I was like, okay, so now what do I have to do? Okay, well, I'm the FRG leader. I have to get in contact with X, Y, and Z. I need to make sure I have all the information. And so each situation and each person is going to be different. And I know that's not a cohesive answer of like, this is what you should do. But, having those coping skills, doing those courses, like if you can get into a resiliency training or if you're interested in the MSAN training, they just kind of revamped it and they're doing more. Highly suggest that you guys apply for them, because even though like you may not feel like you're going to deal with crisis, we don't know what's going to happen in this world. We don't know if there's going to be another World War III. We don't know the next big event that's going to happen. And as a military spouse who's been in the military for a very long time, things can happen at any time. And like, war is just an example. I mean, a car accident, the pipe bursting in your house can turn into a crisis, and you have to be like, you can't, like, that's one of those things where you can't stay in the basement very long. You have to go to action super quick. Like, you can be like, oh shit, and then have to be like, okay, I have to go turn off the water break. Like, you have to kind of learn those coping mechanisms. And I really suggest taking a resiliency course. Even if you just pick up a resilient book, there's so many ones.
Resiliency courses through on base, because I remember I don't know if they do it anymore, but where we would be like the first responder families, like to be the people who come with the soldiers to knock on the door when there's bad news during deployment. Because I remember I took a resiliency class through that. It was through the FRG at the time. And we're trained on how to just be empathetic and how to just be supportive without having an opinion and things like that too. So those things are available. I know that I don't know what they call it nowadays, but I'm sure it is still available on base.
Yeah, so the book that we read in the course is called Crisis, Change, and How to Lead When It Matters Most, and You're It. And this has a lot of, this talks about like, a lot of this program kind of came around with the Boston bombing and how, this course is designed to train people in like the CIA, FBI, things like that, how to handle crisis management. But as military families, we deal with crises so often, like whether it's a new move, last minute training cycle, a 2-minute or 2-hour, deployment recall. Like there's so many different things that can classify as a crisis that may not be a crisis for someone else, but it is currently a crisis for you. If you are wanting to learn more about like how to handle crises and like all the different fundamentals of how to get out of the basement, all the different things that you learn in the course, read this book. So it's A Crisis, Change, and How to Lead When It Matters. You're It. You can get it on Amazon. It is pretty much broken down in the chapters. You can tell like I highlighted, tabbed like my first tabbing experience for all the book that I have. And it goes through all the different things that you could do during a crisis. And how you can get out of the basement quicker. And like I said, every situation is different, because like some crises you don't even go into a basement. Like there's times where you won't even make it into the basement until after the fact, and then you have to determine how long you're going to stay in that basement. And like I said, like have those feels, because if you don't have those feels, you won't get out of the basement.
Well, we mentioned all the time, don't be afraid to get help. Like,
Yes,
it could be the
yes,
literal minor thing of missing a graduation or something, and you were just heartbroken. People feel their
yep.
feels how they feel them, but you can get help, especially when you're in the military. It's free and a lot of different resources.
And that's why we have a podcast too, because we wanted to make this so accessible to military spouses to find resources to help in any type of situation. I mean, whether it's geo batching or medical or support, like community support, or finding friends. Like, we as military spouses understand the hardships that come to being in a military like family, and that there are going to be times, I mean, even us, we're seasoned spouses. Like, I mean, we're seasoned spouses. We've been in the game for a while, and we're still learning new things every single day.
Mhm.
And we're learning that our experiences have changed. Like every time we've done a deployment, it's been different. Every time we've done a PCS, it is different, y'all. Like nothing is ever the same. And so having that support and asking for help is okay, and not feeling bad to ask for help. Like I feel like there's some, I mean, I know I did this. Like I felt bad for asking to help because I'm a military spouse. I signed up to do this. I should do it on my own because I'm a military spouse. Please, because we are not going to be successful. We are not going to be the best versions of ourselves if we do everything by ourselves. And so don't, especially if you're a new spouse who's listening, like build that tribe, build that community, build that pocket full of resources, whether you are printing it out and putting it in a binder, or you are saving it on TikTok or Instagram, or whatever the case may be, however works best for you. Build that repertoire up. Build up your like, oh, my husband is deploying and I am working, I'm a nurse and I'm working, 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, and I just cannot take care of this dog. There's resources out there to help you. I'm a mom, my husband's gone. I need help with childcare. There's resources for you. We're a young family. We don't have enough money to put food in our pantries. There are resources for you. We are here to help you find those resources. Don't get stuck into a point where you are then now grieving because you can't afford to put food on the table, or you're losing friends because you can't go out and do things with them because you are paying $400 for a vet bill or something. There are things out there to help our families. And so let us help you. Let us be your connection. Let us be your found family, because that's why we're here. That's why Deployed Love's here. That's why the podcast is here. That's why I'm here. That's why Sabrina's here. That is what our goal. That's why we've been doing this for 5 seasons. This is why we've been doing Deployed Love for so long. Mm-hmm. And so we want to just make sure everyone's supported and that you have someone to lean on through grief, whether it's as silly as losing a friend, if you think it's silly and you're like, that's fine. Like if you think that's silly, or if you think it's a serious thing and you're like actually truly grieving that experience, we're here.
Yeah. So make sure you look at the resources, look at the show notes, because we always have tons of things included in there, and find the help you need, find the resource you need, because I know personally some of these ones that we've done, I'm like, man, that would have saved me so much heartache. Exactly. If I had known about this when it was happening. It does exist. The things exist. If you don't know what it is, send us an email. We respond to emails every day. So just send us an email and be like, hey, I don't know how to get past this part of my life. What do you know? And we'll be like, okay, here's this resource. This will help. If it doesn't help, here's the person who runs that resource, and they will know someone who can.
Yeah, exactly.
We have lots of connections. So we would love to be able to just give those people to you, because they want to help just as much as we do.
And that's the military community, y'all. Like the military community deep down in its roots wants to support each other. Like I say this all the time. Don't let those bad apple experiences stir you away from other spouses, other people in the community because there are people out there who genuinely want to make sure you have the best time on your military journey. We know that it's not the same for everyone. We know some people are only on it for 3 years. We know some people maybe just do 10. There are people who do 20 and 30. Every journey is different, and so that is, our hope and our everything that we do here at Ruck Up and at Deployed Love is to make sure that we can support you guys in whatever way we can. And we know that we can't support you in every way. So that's why we interview all these amazing resources, because there are people out there who went through the same experience as you. And that's pretty much how almost all of these nonprofits are starting, is that they experience it themselves. And they're like, there was no help. And I want to make sure that this doesn't happen to another person. So the military community is an amazing community to be a part of. They are supportive most of the time, just like in any other community. There are bad apples. So look past the rot and find the genuine golden apples in the bunch and reach out to them. Even like I said, like we've said this in the past, just follow them. Add me as a friend on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram. I have a book Instagram and a regular Instagram. Follow us over on TikTok. Join our Hearts Connect group. Follow the Facebook pages of Ruck Up and Deployed Love. At any time, you can email any of those accounts, and myself or Sabrina will get back to you guys.
Yeah. So thank you guys for listening. I hope that this helps in some situation that definitely is going to happen to you. Like that, there's going to be something that we've talked about today that you will go through. And we will see you guys next. We have some really cool guests. I know me and Ashley are
excited for upcoming
guests. We have some awesome guests coming up. So you guys just stick around and we will be back. And as we like to say, Ruck Up Buttercup.
Bye, everybody.